Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Musing Panda live stream where we're going to talk all about Warmachine and Hordes this week. We're very, very lucky to have Brandon Owens try. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback on my mic. All right, can you guys hear me okay? How about you, Alex? Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you sound just fine, John.
Okay, well, it's going to be okay. This is going to be a distraction. All right, well, we'll do it live, and then we'll add Brandon to the stage. Brandon, we need your mic. It looks like you're missing your camera. There you are.
Howdy.
Hey.
All right. It's so awesome to have you here, Brandon. For anybody that doesn't know, I would say Brandon is probably the best Gravedigger player in the world, certainly number one in my heart. So we'll go from there. I'm guessing he is number one on Longshanks. I haven't looked, but I would bet that he is.
Let's find out
his results. If
Great.
He's not, he will be there shortly.
Make me blush immediately in the live stream. Appreciate it.
That's
awesome.
my job. That is my job. All right. Well, I guess I probably should do this properly. So, like, I got all excited because we actually got Brandon's microphone and camera to work. So, I want to officially welcome everybody. We're going to go deep on Gravediggers. Normally, we would do news and announcements and all kinds of fun stuff. We're going to push that to the end of the show. Brandon can only be here for an hour, and I want to respect his time. So let's get into Gravediggers. Alex, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then say a little something nice about Brandon. Then we'll let Brandon introduce himself, and then we'll jump in on Gravediggers.
Hey, it's me, same as almost every other week. I am actually just getting Gravediggers into my hands, so I'm actually going to be pretty excited for Brandon's insights here. So Brandon and I have been gone to the WTC together. We're both West Coast players, so we see each other all the time at major events and stuff. Brandon's great guy, great player, and yeah, we should all take as number one Gravediggers player on Longshanks. We should take what he has to say pretty seriously here.
Don't let him fool you.
It's true.
It is true, but don't let Brandon fool you. He is an alpha among alphas. Trust me, he knows what he's doing. He's definitely a killer, a stone cold killer, but a super nice guy. I was like pleasantly surprised to find like how nice and awesome you were to hang out with for a weekend. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised by that. Warmachine people are awesome, but I was. So
it was a fun weekend. I'm glad we got to hang out.
Yeah, you got to tell me, I don't know, every match. Basically, Moraine would have won that.
I feel like that was our motto for the weekend. It was fun.
It was absolutely fun. Okay, well, let's just move into our discussion for the week, because like I said, I don't want to waste any time, and I don't even know if we can really do Gravediggers justice an hour, but we are sure going to try. Let me start off by just asking you, how do you think Gravediggers is positioned in the meta right now? Like, how do you feel playing them? Does it feel good?
It does. I think they're in a good spot right now. They have a lot of tools that are super relevant for the meta. By the way, is my audio okay? I've got a fan going because our AC is broken right now, so I don't know if that's interfering with anything.
You sound great to me.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we're in a good spot.
You look pretty good too, I'm just saying.
Thanks. I'm sweating. You can't see it. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the faction's in a great spot. We've got all the tools that you need for the most part to deal with some of the important things in the meta. And Gravediggers also just brings a pretty strong baseline kit that other people have to consider and be prepared for when they're playing in a tournament. I think those are the two things that you want for a faction to be competitive, that it has the tools to deal with the major concerns in the meta, and that it brings some other X factor that makes other people say, oh, am I prepared to deal with X faction? And Gravediggers checks both of those boxes.
Mm-hmm. Would you say there's any like any either stumbling points for Gravediggers right now, particularly with Old Umbry coming out, or anything that they themselves are currently pushing out of the meta or dictating the general flow of what's viable right now?
So stumbling points is an interesting question because I think there are a lot of stumbling points. When I hear that you ask that question, my first thought is that you're asking, are there any traps or mistakes or false flags that people get sucked into when they want to start playing the faction? I think there are a lot of those. And we can maybe go into this in more depth if you want to, but the numbers for Gravediggers' performance in the aggregate right now on Longshanks don't match with a lot of players' experience anecdotally, either playing with the faction or against the faction. And I think that's because a lot of players are picking them up wanting to do a certain thing with them based on either preconceptions about trencher models and the history of trencher models, and or what they see in the offerings, and thinking I can build a list that's just based on like all infantry and my pair is going to be based on that, and I'm going to go into tournaments and do great, and it's not working out. And so I think there are a lot of list building and playstyle pitfalls that people are falling into as a result. And I think that Old Umbre and new releases in general will only exacerbate that for Gravediggers players until they, I guess, sort of realize what the strengths of the faction are and start to play into that. And then I think the faction can handle anything out there. Like in general, I don't think it's a faction that's like, oh yeah, they're really good into these 3 other factions, they're okay into these 5 factions, and they get stomped on by these 2 factions. It's not really that kind of army. It's more the kind of army that can give you a competitive game into the entirety of the field, more or less.
I do have a question for you. It seems like it's a faction that gives you as the primary player a lot of cognitive load to play it well. And I'm wondering if you think because of the great amount of flexibility in the faction, that's what allows you to be competitive into almost everything. But one of the reasons why maybe you don't have an obviously good matchup is that it's not overtly powerful or overpowering. It's just very flexible, and flexibility is power, but it has to be applied well. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think it's agency, the faction. Like if we had attribute bars for a faction, agency was one of them, it would be like off the charts for Gravediggers, in that you have so many decision points every game that you get to make throughout the game. And the fact that you have those decision points gives you the power to adapt and overcome in a way that many other factions don't, or to an extent that many other factions don't. But it also requires a lot of you, or a lot from you, the player, in order to achieve anything at all. And so it absolutely is a faction where if you don't put in 100% every game, you're going to struggle.
Yeah, and I think along with all that agency, it allows you to make a lot of minor mistakes in a game that add up to lower your win percentage, and that might be why some people are struggling with the faction. I think it requires reps to do well. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert. Certainly don't have the reps that you have with them or against them. I've only played against them once. But I do think if you invest the time in Gravediggers, it's a worthy endeavor in that it will reward you with a very high ceiling.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you mentioned, and you kind of hinted at this, but I want to get you to spell it out and see if we can tease this out, that people were building wrong. And I'm going to guess, based on other things I've heard you say, that people are trying to build them as kind of a gun line a la Kane. And maybe that's incorrect. So what do you think is, I don't want to say the proper, but a solid way to build Gravediggers, and what are you focusing on?
Yeah, so Gravediggers, when you look at the roster of models, immediately it's apparent that you can build very strong gun lines with them. And I don't think it's wrong to build a list that leans into guns in Gravediggers, because they can do it well. I think the problem is that the meta that we play in is very well developed to deal with guns for the most part. So if you're relying entirely on a pair where your main strength is you shoot real good, you're going to stumble a lot when you encounter other players who are competitive, have good pairs that they've prepared to take to a tournament where they expect to get shot at. You're going to struggle. So that's exacerbated by the fact that a lot of the models that shoot real good in Gravediggers are low arm, single wound warrior models, infantry models. And I see a lot of people who are just leaning heavily into, like, I'm taking Rangers and Commandos, and I'm taking heavy machine guns, and I'm taking the Black 13th, and I'm just going to shoot infantry models at my opponent and have a bunch of them on the field. And that's cool. And it works in some matchups. And again, I think it really sort of appeals to the aesthetic that people associate with Gravediggers based on what Gravediggers was like in Mark III. But it's not really the strength of the faction. I think the strength of the faction lies a lot in the Warjacks and in sort of combined arms lists. So if you're building a Gravediggers list, I think you want to make sure you have some of those units, those strong warrior units, but you really want to have a good amount of Warjacks, and you want to have a competent melee threat because you need that to play in the meta. And Gravediggers gives you that if you take it.
Yeah, it's
go ahead, Alex. Sorry.
It's interesting looking at their suite of units, you know, because if you do want to go for, you know, particularly the previous, you know, trencher combined arms infantry shooting paradigm, your damage caps out really, really, really low. And the models that are doing the shooting for you tend to be quite expensive. So, you know, both Gravedigger Commandos and Gravedigger Rangers actually have really unremarkable stat lines. Like their weapons, at least on the Rangers, are a bit above average, but these units combine this really high price because they command this really high price because they're combining a lot of functionality together of multiple units, but they're not necessarily executing on all of it at the same time. And, you know, further, you still have the weakness of power. And if you really want to leverage that, you know, it has to be in Warjacks. Is that about right?
Yeah, I mean, there's just no melee infantry in Gravediggers, so you can't rely on your melee hitting power to come from your warriors. It's not there. The faction's not built around it. They don't have options for it right now. So if you expect that at some point in a game you're going to have to punch something to death, you better have some Warjacks to do it. And I think if you're playing in 2025 in Mark IV Warmachine, you can expect to have to punch something to death in every game that you play. Even if it's just one thing, you don't want to get to that point in the game where you don't have the ability to do it, because that can take you from winning to losing in a heartbeat. And you can't take infantry for that, but you have a lot of really good Warjack options for it and a lot of tools in the faction to support the Warjacks in that job.
Yeah, when just as somebody who hasn't invested a lot of time in really having a good think about Gravediggers, what I observed in just preparing for this episode and going through their catalog of models is the Warjacks seem very efficiently costed and effective at fulfilling that dual arms rule that you're talking about. You can build them to shoot well or to apply axe to face, and they can do it pretty competently, both with the heavies and the lights. And the infantry feels a little overcosted for what it was. That's what it looks like to me, right? Like the infantry seems expensive and the Warjacks seem kind of cheap. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Is that crazy?
So I think that the infantry is appropriately costed if you look at them to fill the sort of niche role they have within the framework of the faction, which is fighters that can support or support that can fight. Rangers are really good CRA bots. Like their output with an ammo crate is surprisingly strong. An 8-point unit of Rangers with an ammo crate, you can mostly kill an ARM 18 heavy with their shooting by themselves. And so that's phenomenal for an 8-point unit. It's really difficult to find an analog to that in other factions in the game. At the same time, they're 13-13 with tough and single wound. They do have dig in, so they can be fairly resilient against a lot of shooting, but they're not like we sort of stick around and are hard to remove infantry. And their melee output is not great. The where it comes into, I think, more of like this is how Gravediggers is built, is that your Rangers are also they also have repair, and that's a really useful tool to have in a faction where you're bringing several Warjacks, particularly when they all have tried and true, so they can heal an extra point of damage when they get repaired. So your Rangers bring the ability to repair. They bring very strong ranged output by themselves, and with dig in, they can set up on some point of the board and be resilient to shooting. So you want to take a unit of Rangers, I think, in most lists. Some lists you may want to take 2 units of Rangers, but the second you start taking more than 2 units of Rangers, you're leaning into an element of your list that cannot fight in melee effectively and doesn't have any resilience in melee. And that's, I think, when you start sort of getting off the path to victory and into the path of frustration.
Okay, that's really interesting. So do you feel like Gravediggers has any massive weaknesses that you really worry about that you have to select a caster to cover, or like do you feel pigeonholed into any casters to cover a weakness or a hole, as it were, in how the lists operate in general?
Yeah, so there are a number of things Gravediggers don't do at all. One of those things is have any kind of spell resistance. So you can't protect any of your models against spells in any way. We don't have Arcane Vortex. We don't have Banishing Ward. We don't have Sacred Ward. We don't have friendly upkeep removal. Like we can't remove enemy upkeeps from our own models. There's none of that. And we have very limited enemy spell hate or upkeep removal. We have Chasen on the rack, which is an awful source of upkeep removal because it requires you to damage. And we have a Dispel Gun, Arcane Interference on Buck Hasker, who I think is our worst warcaster, and it's on like a range 6 gun. So it's not a very effective tool. So you have to have other ways to deal with spells, which I think are very present in the meta. Like most factions right now, or many factions right now, have some very powerful offensive magics that they can use, defensive magics that they can use. And Gravediggers doesn't have the option like the faction that you're playing and that I also play, Dusk, to just say, you're not even going to rack up keeps in the first place because I have Moraine on the table, or I can remove them with a Dispel Gunshot that I have 2 of on every list, etc. Or a lot of factions have Hex Blast solos and whatnot. So Gravediggers has to find other ways to work around that. And on the offensive front, one of the weaknesses is when people are stacking armor in certain ways. And another thing we don't have any source of is entropic. We have some limited sources of grievous wounds, but there's no like aura of not healing that works on colossals or other things that can't be affected by grievous. So when you deal with something like a Trichimerics, for instance, you have to really take into account when you're building your list pair that you are going to want to include the tools that can deal with the Trichimerics. And there's a limited roster of casters and Gravediggers that I think are good at dealing with the Trike. And when you're playing against Chimera, you really have 2 options. One option is I'm going to build a list that kills everything around the Trike and then hope that I win before the Trike runs the table. And the other one is I'm going to build a list that can kill the Trike. I prefer the latter, but the former is certainly an option.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So, how about we? Well, let me ask you, Alex. Is there anything else you want to ask in general about Gravediggers before we start building a list pair?
I mean, I think this segues into the building list pair. You mentioned that Buck Hasker is the worst caster. I had the misfortune to play him over the weekend, and it's like he's mostly fine, but he has a 0 out of 10 feet, and that's like unforgivable. What do you think of the overall state of the caster stable? Do you think it sort of falls into a similar problem to like Brine Bloods, where you're just starting to get cases of strict superiority and developing, one true pair just because there are some that are clearly above the rest?
To be fair, I think almost every faction in the game right now, there are 2 or 3 best casters that you want to play at a given point in the meta. I think the only faction that bucks that trend is Crix, because they're just very clearly at the top of the heap in terms of the strength of their caster roster. There's so many viable pairs in Crix. There's like basically no limit to what a viable pair in Crix is. And I think they're the very clear outlier in that regard. I think Gravediggers is similar to most factions in that you've got like 3 casters that are really, up there as your best options. And then you've got a few more that are perfectly fine to put into a pair and bring some unique strengths. And then you've got like 1 or 2, I don't know if duds is the right word, but casters that are not ever going to be optimal in any meta and any list pair because the strength of their kit just isn't on par with the others.
Right. Those are the casters that need love in the January update, right?
Right.
That's just how it is. All right. Well, let's start with who would you start your pair with? Like who's the first caster you want to build for?
So when I'm building a list pair, and I know there are a lot of approaches to this, but when I'm building one, I want to accomplish two things. I want to personally have as much broad coverage into everything out there in the meta as possible. I don't ever want to build a list pair knowing that, man, I hope I don't get X faction, because if I get X faction, I lose. I don't like going into a tournament with dodge as a part of my plan. So I want broad coverage, and I also ideally want to present something that is just objectively in of itself strong, that when my opponents see it in my list pair, they're going to say, oh boy, I need to consider that when I am selecting which list I'm going to play. And I hope I have the tools to deal with that. And I think one of the casters in the faction, if not like the caster in the faction that supports those paradigms the most, yes, you have found him. Whoever is hovering over the Warmachine app right now, it's Grant Vargus.
Yeah.
He just has such a broadly applicable kit that he's a natural choice to gravitate to first when building a list pair. He brings Carnage, which is super relevant in this meta to be able to deal with higher defense in melee. He has a strong gun himself, so he can contribute to the fight almost every turn if you want to. He brings Rack 3 and Arcane 7, so he can use our very good Rack more effectively than most of the other casters in the faction. And he brings a feat that is just broadly applicable because it's a +3 arm feat, blast resist, no knockdown. And so no matter what, you will always have a use for that feat. And when you encounter something where you're like, I don't really know how to deal with this, your feat can at least help. It's not like a very specific offensive application feat. It's not a half the time this doesn't work control feat like Hasker. It's a feat that's just always, I need to weather this turn or this uncertainty. Let me press the big red button, and I'm sure at least some of my stuff will come through unscathed.
Also, it allows you to aggressively play scenario. You can always just feat and play scenario. So, I mean, that's like, if you don't know what to do and you don't know how to approach a person's list, there is nothing wrong with feeding, shoving your stuff in the zones and saying, okay, I'm going to win unless you come deal with me. Right. So,
right.
I think that's a pretty strong play style. Okay. So let's talk about options. Where are you starting when you start filling out a list? Like you said, most lists want to have one unit of Rangers. Is that something you want to start with, or would you start with the checks?
We haven't even gotten there yet. Every Warcaster in Gravediggers is basically a true mark with a companion. They all start with Plugger. I don't know why the app gives you the option to add Plugger. It should pre-populate every time you start a list. Add Plugger. If you ever build a list and you're thinking about cutting Plugger, you're like, do I need Plugger? Just stop. Take a second, splash some cold water on your face and say, what was I thinking? Let me put Plugger in the list.
That's interesting because I actually have it in our notes. Is Plugger an auto include? Because I've never seen a Gravedigger list without Plugger in it. So I guess that answers that question. So it's required.
It's just a really unique model that he fits into the Gravedigger theme or motif because he has lots of tools and special rules, and so you're always going to have a use for him. And sort of, I feel like this is maybe at odds with the nature of the conversation right now about how to build a good list. But Plugger is also just so unique and fun to play. There's no other Jack like him in the game. The closest Jack I can think of is Grendel, because he's very much like I go in there, I kill warriors really well, and I sprint away. Grendel also kills everything really well, but Plugger just takes that to another level with Killing Spree and Sprint. If you haven't played games with Plugger yet, it is a unique and special joy in the game of Warmachine. But again, stepping away from that, just in terms of like, I don't have fun in the game, I don't care about how fun something is, I just want power. Plugger also brings that for you because he's incredibly good at killing warriors. He has the threat of going nuclear or infinite and just like personally bringing the apocalypse to your opponent if they don't position carefully. He could take out any number of points if they position poorly by himself. And then on top of that, he can do good work to a heavy. He's not the best at killing other heavies, but he can still do good work. He's got tools for it, and there are tools to support him in the faction. And he also has a very good gun that you can use. Even if you don't like melee on a given turn, you can walk up and shoot D3+1 volume fire POW 12s at something, and that's very strong in the faction. He's got stealth, he's got extended control range, he's aggressive, so he charges for free. He's just sort of the total package. So there's no real good reason not to take Plugger in every Gravediggers list at this point.
Yeah, he's got Pathfinder, Advanced Deploy, like Unstoppable. Yeah, what doesn't this guy do? He just does everything, pretty much. I mean, he is a little expensive.
That's what he does.
Yes, 17 points is a lot, but he's just awesome. And like I said, I've never seen anybody not play him, so I think that's good. Okay, all right. So we now have the auto include. What else would you like to talk about for Vargus?
So with Vargus, I personally like to take at least 2 Valiants. The Sword and Board 14-point Valiants. I think they just bring the everything you want in terms of like a Gravediggers all comers like generalist list. Valiants do that. So with the shield, you get a model that is 12-21, which is a great foundation for applying Arcane Shield, for applying Deceleration, for applying Vargus's Feet. You have the potential to put 2 models in places on the table where your opponent might be scratching their head saying, I don't know if I can remove those this turn. And that's a good place to be. There are plenty of lists out there that can absolutely kill feated Valiants with Vargus. But there are also a ton of lists that can't. And the list that can usually only kill 1. And usually takes a lot of resources. And if you can find yourself in a position where you can remove some of those tools or resources before you feat, it can be devastating. So I like 2. 1 just doesn't feel like enough. You can certainly do more than 2. I've played lists with more than 2, but 2 feels like a comfortable starting point when you're building a list. I like the aggressive head because it's such a strong rule. In a faction where, like we sort of talked about earlier, you can struggle to deal with armor if you aren't prepared for and building for it. Aggressive helps because it gives you the focus efficiency to have another attack you can make. It means that you don't have to decide whether to charge or not, which is great because the weapon I like in the right hand is the trench sword and has brutal charge. So you want to always have that option to charge, or be able to take that option to charge if you have it. So I like the aggressive head for that, and also gives you heavy boiler. And Vargus brings or has Field Marshal Fleet as well as Fleet for himself. So with the aggressive head, you can run a Valiant 14 inches up the table on turn 1, which is really far. And then they threat 14 inches to charge after that. And so you sort of push this very long range threat very far up the table turn 1. They can be very difficult to kill because of the armor values. And it's just sort of the total package to me for a 14-point value Warjack.
Yeah, it seems like you're just absolutely devouring space with this army right out of the gate, especially with how much of the rest of the force is going to be AD as well. Having your Valiants keep pace with that is quite important.
Yeah, and if you want a disgusting turn 1 play, if you ever are able to rack Rhythm of War with Vargus and you get the first turn, you can move your Valiant 17 inches up the table turn 1 because you fleet, run with heavy boiler 14 at the end of your turn, you move another 3 inches from Rhythm of War, and you're sitting at the 23-inch line with Valiants. Pluggers at the 24-inch line, I believe. Like and you threat 14 from there, so you're threatening the deployment zone.
Well, this doesn't seem
that's
good.
terrifying.
Why are we putting this out on the podcast or the live stream? I can't even go back and edit it out because it's live. So all right, so that seems really strong. Now, have you ever given any consideration to building one of the things I've been messing around with a lot is just like super cheap options, but it doesn't look like you can really get that much cheaper on.
So you can take 10-point Valiants, and I think a 10-point Valiant is a good value. I take 10-point Valiants. Well, I take 12-point Valiants in my Jake's list.
Right.
Because I'm taking the trench sword and aggressive. But 10-point Valiants are good value. I just feel like you get more out of the 14-point variant with Vargus in particular because he can actually keep them alive after engagement. So you're not like just throwing it away to trade. And because of that, I want to give myself the best chance of keeping these models alive. And the shield does that. And once I'm investing 2 points to give them that shield, I want to make them as effective and efficient as possible. So I'm giving them the trench sword. I'm giving them the aggressive head, and I'm hoping I
Makes
can get
sense.
more than one turn out of use, more than one turn of use out of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the other nice thing is too, because they have a magical 14-inch threat. I've noticed elite threat tends to be 13 inches in this game. Not always, but a lot. If you hit 13, a lot of times you're sort of in that range of you get to make the first charge. You get to 14, and now you out threat all those 13-inch charges. You know, all those Morton Ebrejects, all that. You know, all that stuff, and it kind of
Baseline cavalry. Yeah.
yeah. You get to alpha. And then you get to feet, which doesn't really seem very fair. That doesn't seem like a very fair way to play, which I approve of, but I don't like it. I'm just saying for the record, I don't like that idea.
So
All right,
once we have these warjacks, I think the next auto include thing is at least 1 unit of gun mages.
Okay.
Because
Gotta feel those
allocating is for
warjacks, right?
suckers. Yeah, we
Yep.
don't want to allocate if we don't have to. And fortunately in Gravediggers, we don't have to, as in most factions at this point.
The
I
other
like
thing
2, but 1 you can get there. 2 means that Vargus is more likely to be able to use his gun in a given turn,
I dig it.
because his gun is really good.
I would probably start with 2 because even one of the things I like about gun mages is even if you're not loading up focus on jacks, they're still like they're plenty good shooting. I mean, they have electro
Yep.
leap, they got range 13 or something silly.
They're range 10. They can choose Electroleap or Sniper, Heartseeker. The issues are ret 6. So
Yeah.
while, yes, they look like they could contribute in a given fight, I have not had a game yet where gun mages contributed like in a really meaningful way. It's usually like end game when you've got some gun mages left and your opponent has some contesting models somewhere, and you're like, they might as well charge and just try to roll some 8s or whatever they need to deal with these models, and you often get some value out of them. But I'm never putting them in a position where they are going to fight if I have warjacks to support still, because the empower is just almost always going to be a better use of them in most lists. Kane would be an exception depending on the game that you're in, but in most lists, like they just want to empower and play scenario and maybe use an airdrop card at some point, and then later in the game, if they're still alive, you can use them to help fight.
I like it. Okay, well, you said start with at least 1, so we'll start with 1 and maybe we'll add the other, because I guess we only have 3 jacks. It's not like we're 2 jack heavy at this point. What other considerations? Now, are you a put Black 13th in a lot of lists? I mean, there's a lot of Storm Legion players that I see put Black 13th in every list. Does that apply to Gravediggers or not so much?
Not so much in the way that it applies in Storm Legion. In Storm Legion, I think you always or almost always take them because they're one of your strongest options. They're very good.
And they're
very good.
different from what the faction does. Like the rest of your infantry options versus in Gravediggers, like they're more or less exactly the same as everybody else.
Yeah, with the exception that they can't benefit from any of your airdrops that you have because they're not Gravedigger models. They're very strong. They don't need help or support to be very strong, which is why they're so popular in Storm Legion. You can also take Snipe for them in Storm Legion, which they love. In Gravediggers, instead of Snipe, we have the option of ammo crates, which they can't benefit from. But they're still just a strong independent unit. They have stiffer competition in Gravediggers. So a lot of Gravediggers players do put them in either every list or every list pair. I don't. And that's just a choice. It's not because they're not super high value. They are. It's just every time I build a list, I am fighting over like tooth and nail over every single point. And the Black 13th don't usually make the cut for me, but they're always like right there on the cusp of, if I just had the points, they'd be in there.
Right. I could see that. Yeah. One of the things I, just as an aside, that when I think about matchups, and one of the reasons why I don't like Vargus is I just don't feel like I can ever shoot his army, because he's got the feet and then he can stack T-cell. Like I just don't feel like a gunshot is ever like effective. And then all of his troopers are resistant to blast, or, you know, dug in, so they're +4 defense, or I don't know. It's just, it's super annoying to try and shoot a Vargus list. So, you know, earlier when you had mentioned a lot of good players are circumventing guns. I think Vargus kind of does that with his kit all by himself.
Yeah, I think it's important for factions to have options that are really strong at a shooting. Otherwise, the meta gets into a really awful place where you've got the alpha shooters, and then you've got the few factions that aren't playing alpha shooters that have the alpha anti-shooters, and it just sort of devolves and reduces. And so I think it's good to give every faction good options against guns and to make them as not binary as possible. And Gravediggers just sort of responds to guns by being able to bring good armor values and bring a variety of tech like Cloud Wall, Dig In, Rock Wall, Storm Veins. And depending on what kind of shooting you're facing, some of that tech won't work, some of it will work. And so you have a much more nuanced, diverse environment or ecosystem where you can counter guns. Not every single shooting list. It's not like everything has carapace and high arm values all game, right? But you have to pick what you build into your list carefully. When you take some tech, it makes you weaker into other types of things. So I think that's exactly where you want to be for as many factions as possible if we're just looking at like the broader meta and environment.
Interesting. Okay, so we talked about the Black 13th. I'm actually kind of curious what you thought about the Rowdies as well. I've played a lot of Cloud Wall in my day, and I quite enjoy that play style. I don't know that my opponents enjoy that play style as much. Is the Rowdies something that makes it into any of your lists? I mean, do you consider that, or?
Yeah, so I think the Rowdies are a very good unit, but they're polar opposites of the Black 13th, and the Black 13th are just like every game we're gonna do the Black 13th thing and we're gonna shoot stuff, and our strength is that we shoot stuff real good. And if we can't shoot anything, then we're sad. But as long as we can shoot stuff, then we're happy, and you're happy you brought us. The Rowdies are the opposite. They're a very diverse toolkit, and when you sit down at every table and when you begin every turn, you're asking yourself, what are the Rowdies going to be best at right now, and how do I use them effectively in that role? They can make a Cloud Wall. That's simple and easy. And in some matchups, a Cloud Wall can be devastating for your opponent. And when you find yourself in those matchups, you put down the Cloud Wall and you chuckle all the way to the bank. That's not going to be a lot of matchups, but they exist, and so having them in your list is great. In some matchups, the Rowdy shooting is going to be great. You're going to be able to walk up to something with Jenkins and hit it with a flare grenade or a Grievous grenade. Maybe you drop an ammo crate and you hit it with a POW 14 that flares it, and then Franks is going to shoot it with two POW 14s, and they can both reroll damage, and Dalton shoots it with the POW 16 and can reroll damage, or maybe Franks does it both barrels, a POW 16 or 18 with an ammo crate, and they do that in the repo back. Or maybe you're in a matchup where your opponent has a bunch of single wound infantry and they have to fear the Rowdies every turn of the game because it's a unit with killing spree and anatomical precision. And in a Vargus list, which my Vargus list, I do currently include the Rowdies, you have Carnage. So they can be Mat 9, anatomical precision with killing spree, dual attack on everybody, with the exception that Jenkins' grenade has cumbersome. But they're similar to Plugger in that against single wound infantry, they have the possibility of delivering the apocalypse to your opponent. And that kind of unit in a list is something that I really like, particularly in conjunction with Plugger, because if your opponent is relying on any amount of single wound infantry, now they have to respect two very different independent modules that can deliver the apocalypse to them. And that puts a lot of constraint and pressure on them, gives you a lot of freedom. And in the meantime, the Rowdies can still Cloud Wall, they can still shoot. They have POW 9 Weapon Master, so they can do a decent amount of damage to a single hard target. Dalton has Grievous Wounds on his melee as well. So they've just got like all the utility and flexibility that I think is the hallmark of Gravediggers as a faction. And so I like them in my Vargus list, which is sort of the all-comers toolbox list. I think they slot in perfectly for that.
All right, I've added them. Very cool. All right, Alex, what other questions do you have here? You're getting into this faction.
Yeah. Well, I've been studying the changes in Brandon's lists over time. I think I'm tempted to ask about heavy airdrops and how and when you decide whether you're taking them at all or how many. You know, because if you hit both, that's 10% of your army. You know, what are your thoughts there?
So I think that if you are taking a Valiant, you are highly likely to take a heavy airdrop, at least one. I think even if you're not taking a Valiant, you're highly likely to take at least one heavy airdrop. In fact, there's only one list I've built that I play that I like where I don't take any heavy airdrops, and it's not Vargus. The thing
Right.
about the heavy airdrops is that at baseline, it's a 5-point light warjack that you get to decide when and where it enters the battlefield. And the 5-point light warjacks you can bring are quite good. You can bring in a skirmisher that has a decent gun. It's range 14, POW 13 with crit brutal. Excuse me, and it has sentry fire, whatever the thing is where you make a free shot during your maintenance phase. But it's just a solid gun that you can deploy at any point in the game outside of turn 1 on anywhere on the battlefield that you have a Gravedigger model that's a Jack Marshall that you can drop it onto. And I've played several games where I drop in a skirmisher to kill something that my opponent wasn't necessarily thinking I was going to be able to kill, because you have that rapidly deployable gun. You can drop it in somewhere. They have to forfeit movement or action the turn that they're brought in. So you put it where you want it in range to shoot. It can get empowered by gun mages and then shoot it, forfeit its movement and shoot its gun. And it's a decent gun. And then you also have the blocker, which I think is just the hallmark of value for a 5-point light warjack that you get to airdrop in, because it's 13-16. Unlike the, it's basically the Patriot with some discounted parts. So it's 13-16. It has Mat 6, Rat 6 instead of Mat 7. I'm sorry, instead of Rat 7. And it comes with the shield, the same shield on the Patriot. So it's +2 armor. It gives you like a POW 12 melee weapon. Maybe that's higher than the one that's baseline on the Patriot. I don't know. And it gives you the spray POW 12. It has sidestep. It has set defense, I believe, as well. And it has a reach, a 2-inch reach POW 12 spear on top of all of that. Yeah, the shield on the Patriot's POW 11. So it's even higher than that. So you get this decently sturdy model, right? Like 13-18 with set defense. With Vargus, 13-21 if you drop it in on feet turn, that you can put somewhere sort of disgustingly far, depending on the circumstances, and either just get in the way and be a roadblock, or contest something, or score something. Like one of my favorite plays to do with heavy airdrops on a lot of these scenarios, like for instance, payload. You've got this 50 mil objective just sort of sitting off in Narnia that you don't really want to babysit with Plugger. You don't want to babysit it with a Valiant. You certainly don't want to babysit it with your caster. Like that's a waste of this 14-point module or the 17-point module. Like I really hope I don't have to dedicate one of my big heavy warjacks over there. You just drop in a 5-point airdrop light to just sit there and score that thing. It could be a blocker, so it's really hard for your opponent to dislodge. It could be a skirmisher, so it gets to shoot every turn. But I often just sit them on an objective and say, all right, this is what I'm going to score this with. And I know probably in a lot of games, like for payload or whatever, where I just like run my warjacks to the center, my opponent might be thinking, what's he doing? He's leaving his 50 mil with no warjack. Is he going to run a 50, like a heavy warjack back to it to score it? No, I'm going to heavy airdrop a light, right? So it just like Dan Riker said in chat, the flexibility of the heavy airdrops is fantastic. And that's just if you're looking at light warjacks. If you have at least one Valiant, you also have the option to heavy airdrop a heavy weapon onto your Valiants. And that, again, just like really feeds into the flexibility of Gravediggers as an army. You can bring a flamethrower that's a boostable Rat 6 spray 10 POW 14 that has flare on it, so you can flare something. You can bring a range 16 howitzer that's POW 14 as well. They're all POW 14, and it has momentum. And you can bring in a rocket pod, which is a reload 1 AUE 2 POW 14 POW 8 blast gun. And in a lot of in so many games, your opponent has to account for the fact that at any point, if my caster is kind of exposed, he could airdrop a howitzer and knock me down and then shoot me to death. And so you have this option of either swelling your numbers with light warjacks or swelling your range capacity with 2 heavy airdrops in a game, or with the light warjacks as well. And You can't do that any other way than with heavy airdrops. Like so many games I've had where my opponent has some models that are vulnerable to blast damage. I don't want to pay for the heavy mortar on a Valiant when I build it into my list because I have to give up a good melee weapon. So I just go into a game without any real blast damage capacity, but I can airdrop in a mortar. I'm sorry, not a mortar, a rocket pod, and all of a sudden I can kill Mage Hunter assassins. I can kill the Shades and Chimera. I can kill so many different things with blast damage. I can kill what's his face, Befuddle Boy in Crix,
Yeah.
or Xiphus.
Yep.
Sorry, Xiphus.
Cyphus.
Because he's stealth, and like, oh, you didn't rack second sight, so you can't ignore stealth. How are you going to kill Xiphus? I'm going to bring in a rocket pod, and I'm going to double boost blast damage on him. And if I really want to be sure he dies, I'm going to do it with an ammo crate, so it's POW 10 blast damage. So it just gives you that flexibility where you have all these different angles of pressure that you can apply to your opponent, and they have to account for it, or they're going to lose stuff to it, which is, I think, where the faction is really at its strongest.
Yeah, there's this concept of an unfired gun that is very powerful in Warmachine. And the thing with Gravediggers is you don't know what's loaded in the barrel that's pointing at your head, which makes it even more dangerous. You know, it's like a lot of times I find a powerful feat unused. The threat of it is more powerful than the actual effect of the feat. Like Tyrus's feat is a good example of that, right? The +2 threat range is great, and it allows you to get places, but the fact that you have it available to you makes your opponent have to respect an extra 2 inches of threat for the rest of the game until you actually pull the trigger on that thing. And so I think Gravediggers really leans into that. I have this loaded gun. I'm not telling you what ammo's in it. As a matter of fact, I don't even have to decide until the situation presents itself where it's really enticing for me to use it. So I think the airdrops is very powerful, but you have to be a little bit careful because you can create a situation where you're starting with less stuff on the board. So you have less tools to work with until the airdrops come in, right? Because they're unused until you use them. So
yeah, turn 1, Gravediggers is at its weakest. Fortunately, most games aren't decided on turn 1, but you feel it on turn 1, especially if you're going second.
Oh, just because your airdrops can't trigger yet.
Yeah, so you've got, like we were talking about, this gun, and the magazine is loaded with all these different types of rounds. And I'm sorry, John, I do have to tell my opponent what my gun is loaded with. I tell them all the different types of ammunition that are loaded in the magazine because it's the reality, right? But they don't know what they're getting shot with until I pull the trigger. But on turn 1, I don't have that magazine available. So my opponent doesn't have to respect all of my threats and options on turn 1. Because I don't have the potential 2-inch extra threat range from the fuel canister. I don't have the potential extra 2-inch threat range from ammo crates for shooting, or the potential 2 inches of damage. I don't have the option to have magical weapons from ammo crates to my guns. And I don't have the option to airdrop in a heavy weapon to momentum something, or to flare it, or to shoot blast damage, etc. I don't have any of that on turn 1. So I'm basically like a half-baked faction on turn 1 when they ask what my threats are. I'm like, this turn, I only threat 12 inches. This turn, I don't have very many guns. But next turn, just you wait, it could be anything.
Right. That's cool. All right. Well, now that we've talked a little bit about airdrops, what else do you want to round this list out with as far as light and heavy airdrops? What are you thinking?
So for Vargus, I like to, first of all, for every list, I put in 2 light airdrops. They're free. You get to choose 8 command cards. The faction is built around light airdrops. I think you start every list with 2 of them. I feel like it would be an objective mistake not to take 2 in every list. I haven't found a situation yet where that would feel correct.
Yeah, I think that's right as well. Just like the heavy airdrop adding so much flexibility. Each one of these, like, they're super consequential. They're like each one, like the option to pick which one you need for any given situation makes it like one of the most consequential free models ever.
Yeah. And also the stats of most of the models in the faction are built around the availability of light airdrops. Like you look at the volume fire guns that we have in Gravediggers, they're all POW 12. You look at a lot of other volume fire guns like Warbore, etc., they're POW 13, right? Ours are POW 12, I think, because we have ammo crates available. You look at the harpoon gun in Gravediggers, it's a range 10 POW 12. You look at harpoons and a lot of other factions, they're POW 14, like in Necrofactorium, etc., because we have ammo crates. So if you don't take them, I think you're handicapping yourself because the Gravediggers are balanced around their existence.
Makes sense. That makes total sense. All right. Do you want to add a second heavy airdrop to this, or do you want to talk about other options first and come
With
back to it?
Vargus, I really like 2 heavy airdrops because they fit into his game plan really well. I think there are a lot of lists where 1 is going to be acceptable. So you have the option to bring in one of those toolkit guns on a Valiant, and or the option to bring in an unexpected contest with the light warjack getting airdrop somewhere that your opponent maybe wasn't accounting for, or where you don't have to commit some of your models to a place where they could be killed the turn before you need them to go to somewhere to contest. So I think 1 is the minimum in most lists. I don't bring any in Jake's right now. But with Vargus, I like 2 because they 100% fit into and support his game plan.
I dig it. And so then in that case, we have to drop one of these command cards, right? We can go back over that later.
I don't know why the app pre-populates your command cards for Gravediggers with 0 airdrops. It's baffling to me.
Yeah.
I think somebody should take the time to go back into the app and change the default loadout to at least include light airdrops. But yeah, I don't really get it. So I just, in terms of command cards, I like, you always take Blessing. Blessing is so strong. I see no reason not to take it in every list.
Especially because Gravediggers has so few upkeep outs or interaction with magical effects in general.
Right. You take the 2 light airdrops, and with Vargus, you take the 2 heavy airdrops, and that's sort of where you start with the Vargus list. Everything else is optional. I really like Old Faithful with all these warjacks, and also just sort of the play paradigm with Vargus, where you're often presenting your opponent with some armor that you're hoping they can't kill all of, but sometimes you'll end up with crippled systems. Having Old Faithful is really nice for that. I like military engineering because I think Sapper is always a good option to have, and in Gravediggers, it's Sapper Plus because it also lets you dig in a friendly warrior model instead if you want. Hit and run is always good value. Lucky Penny is also good value. Defenses can be good value. It's really going to depend on your list and your preferences. I have tried it with Vargus. My default right now is I'm not a fan of defenses with Vargus, but it's never a bad include. Like, just having 2 spike traps is almost always a nice thing to have on a list. So you've got a lot of options, and you're just going to sort of flavor it to taste as an individual player at that point.
Okay. So we'll leave that up to individual taste then for now. All right. So it looks like you still have a big chunk of points to spend here. What else do you want to add to the list? We only have gun mages and the rowdies and the 3 jacks currently.
And also, John, just so that you know, I can go over the hour that we allotted. I'll just be hungry for a little bit, but we'll be fine. So you don't have to rush through any of this stuff.
Okay. Again, I want to respect your time, and I really appreciate you jumping on with us because I know a lot of people are going to get a ton out of this. I think a lot of people are struggling, in particular with this faction, because it is very difficult to do well. I think it takes reps, and so I think you're going to shortcut a lot of people just in talking about this. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I love talking about Warmachine, and I hope that our conversation will be helpful to some people. And once you get me started talking about Warmachine, thoughts of things, pedestrian things like eating food and dinner sort of just fall to the back. So yeah, so anyway, we've moved on from airdrops and we're talking about what other models to include at this point, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I like unit of rangers like we talked about before. Having a unit of rangers in any list gives you some very potent shooting that your opponent has to account for. Like, at any point, a unit of rangers can drop a heavy weapon, or sorry, an ammo crate, and mostly kill a heavy warjack by themselves, depending on its stats. And that's for 8 points. And so I don't really see a great reason. Sorry, go ahead.
That's gross.
It is. It's
yeah,
gross.
Yeah, I don't know
wonderful.
Yeah, well, it depends which side of the table you're sitting on. If
I
get my heavy shut off by an 8-point unit of rangers, I'm gonna be a little bit salty. I'm just telling you.
Yes. I mean, again, it takes an airdrop, and like you were talking about earlier, once you use these things, you're reducing the potentiality or the potential threat and power of your army. So it does take one of those. And it's also one of your command cards in the turn, and you're still limited to 2 command cards per turn in Gravediggers as well. But you have that option. And for 8 points, I think it's a great option to include in most lists. Vargus is no exception. And it also brings you gives you access to repair, which I also like. Because again, you've got these warjacks that are likely to survive an encounter, are more likely to survive an encounter with the enemy than in most lists.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like
Right,
Sam
yeah,
agrees
'cause-
with you 100%.
Oh,
that
go
the
ahead.
default card loadout should have both light airdrops. So
I think it's just a weird quirk that they probably. I have no idea what their decision tree was, but I feel like they either thought when people are learning the faction and they have these default command cards, let's take it slow and not worry about airdrops yet, or nobody really thought too hard about it and they just did some default thing like every other faction.
I'm guessing it's the
Mhm.
second, but I have no information on that. It's just my experience with the game. All right. I'm assuming you're not going to put an attachment on this guy, this express sniper.
Personal choice. I think the sniper brings a really good gun and also adds to your toolkit. It's Thunderbolt, which is always super valuable in modern steamroller scenarios, and he also has Grievous Wounds, which is valuable, particularly when we have a lot of good guns. You can shoot to cripple and potentially make that damage stick and not necessarily need to kill something. And
Yep.
it also brings a really good mini feat to the unit with Cautious Advance. So you can walk, dig in, take your gunshots as a mini feat once per game. So it's a good model. 3 points is a decent point cost for it. I don't think it's a mistake to take an express sniper. It's just a choice. And I think I've mentioned it, and it's going to be a recurring theme. When you're building Gravediggers lists, you're always going to be having intense fights for points because there's so many good things that you want to take. And so for me, I often don't put in the Ranger Sniper, but it's 100% valid to take it. It's not a bad include.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. All right. Now, do you consider any Patriots for this list at all? I'm just
Not
curious.
for Vargus. Not for Vargus. So there are 2 kinds of Patriots that you can take, right? There's the shooting Patriot, and then there's the melee Patriot. And then there's a third theoretical kind of Patriot you could take, which is a tanky Patriot. And that would be fantastic with Vargus, right? You've got a 13, 18 Patriot because of the shield, the set defense. That sounds great. But the shield is so expensive that when you build a shield Patriot, how many points do we end up costing if all we take is the cheapest Patriot with the shield? What is it? 9 points?
Right.
And let me just make sure it's 9 points. I don't want to put incomplete or inaccurate information out there.
Shield
It's worth noting. It's worth noting that shield is the same cost as a blocker.
Right. So at 9 points, you have a Patriot that's 13, 18 with set defense. For 10 points, you could have a Valiant that's 12, 19 with more boxes, hits harder in melee. Or you could almost have 2 heavy airdrops for 9 points. And 2 heavy airdrops would get you 2 blockers, which are also 13, 18 with set defense. So
actually, they're 13, 19, right? Because the shield's +2.
The blockers are lower armor by default.
I got it.
You are correct. Patriot would be 13, 19 instead of 12, 19 for a Valiant.
Okay, I was just curious. So yeah, I see what you're saying.
So I don't think that the defensive tanky Patriot is a real option right now. If it were, then Vargus would absolutely be the place to take them. The shooty Patriot is a good option, but I think it's expensive and it doesn't really fit into the game plan with Vargus. So the 10-point Patriot, our beloved Charger Patriot, I think is a fantastic package. For 10 points, you can take a Patriot with reposition, with the dual shot cannon, which is range 12, POW 12, reload 1, powerful attack, and then the trench blade or whatever for the other weapon. But you've got a repo gun platform with a powerful attack, 2-shot hand cannon. That's great. And you can add Rhythm of War to the mix so that it functionally repos 6 inches after you shoot every turn. I love that Patriot with Kane. I love it in some other applications, but it's very expensive. and I don't love it with Vargus because it just doesn't really fit into my game plan as much.
Got it. All right. Interesting. Alex, why don't you jump in here? I mean, is there any solos that you want to add, or?
Oh yeah, the solo selection is interesting because it's walk us through what we're looking at here for sure what the staples are and then what really fits with Vargus.
Sure. Stella Baron is your tactician solo. She has precision strike, and she's 3 points. So if you want to include precision strike in your army, then she's a good include. She's always there for you.
If I had that available for 5 points in Dusk, I would play it in every army. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah, and Dusk operates a little differently because you have a lot of medium and large bases that you're playing all the time, and that's not really the case in Gravediggers. All of our infantry is 30 millimeter. We're taking warjacks, and we have a decent amount of out of activation movement available with fuel canisters if you need to brick up and then break apart and not step on each other's toes. So I just haven't found a game where I absolutely needed tactician playing Gravediggers. It's useful in every game. It makes it easier for you to position. It takes some stress and positional load off of you as the player, but she's not essential.
Right.
And because we've got so many good options to choose from, and because the modern Steamroller packet has no role for solos over any other unit type or model type, she's not making it into my list most often at this point. But she's good, right? She's just not necessarily the best use of points, but she's a good use of points. Bruno is the opposite. He's a pure combat solo, and I think he's fantastic. So yeah, let's bring up his rules for a second here. He is a troll blood or trollkin, but his defensive stats aren't that great. He's 13-14 with 8 boxes and tough. He does have evasive and prowl, which is nice. He has reposition, which is nice. And he has Pathfinder and Unstoppable. By the way, every model in Gravediggers that has Gravediggers on the card either has Pathfinder or Relentless Charge. So it's not remarkable that he has Pathfinder, but it's worth noting, right? So his gun is fantastic. He's Rat 7, D3+1, and he has 2 rules that just absolutely dumpster a lot of warrior models. It's automatic. His gun is automatically boosted against warriors. If he hits, they're knocked down, and he can push them 2 inches. Both of those are after the attack is resolved, so it doesn't interact with tough. Like, it doesn't just turn off tough because after the attack is resolved. But the ability to push things out of formation or to push them away from objectives and or to knock down high defense things is fantastic. Like, I've had lots of games where Bruno is just sort of sitting not midfield, but in sort of the middle line for me, not in the back line, but like behind my front line. And my opponent might run up some like decent defense warrior models to jam him, like a unit of Mage Hunter assassins or like some Def 13, Def 14 models to jam my front line, right? Bruno can sit back there, aim, and shoot boosted Rat 9s at those models. So he's reliably hitting up to like Def 17 or higher with up to 2 to 4 shots. If he hits, he knocks the thing down. Maybe he kills it, maybe he just knocks it down, and he can push it. So he deals with jams so well. He can bully high value models if you can deliver him to them, like cavalry models or 80 millimeter solos, like Siege Terrasks, Zephyrs, etc. Because he only cares if it's a warrior model. It doesn't matter if it's an 80 mil warrior model. You can knock it down, you can push it, unless it has some special rule that prevents that. So he is a model that I'm often taking because he's just so high impact when you have any of these like warrior models on the table that he can be applied to, and that's pretty often.
Right. And even if you get to like if Bruno makes it alive to like sort of mid to late game where casters are coming out of their bunkers and like needing to contribute, he creates a death zone. Like, don't get too close to Bruno or you might just lose.
Absolutely. And his threat range at maximum is 16 inches if you have an ammo crate available. If you are playing with Cynthia Roscoe, it can be even further because she can give him Swift Hunter on her feet turn. So like there's a 14 to 16 inch bubble from Bruno where your caster has to ask themselves whether they die if they get knocked down. And that's also just very powerful. Or your opponent has some high value solos or other models that they need to use in the game, and Bruno existing means they have to be careful where they put them and either have shield guards or something else going on, because you can sit something behind cover and Bruno still has a decent chance to hit it, especially if it's like one model. It could be def 20 and Bruno goes up there and takes 2 to 4 boosted chances to hit that. Is that a risk that you want to take? You have to ask yourself that.
Yeah, I don't really like this guy. Speaking as a Dusk player, like I don't really want him knocking all my cats down. That seems bad. Like really annoying. Really annoying.
Yeah. You can protect one of them with IR, one unit of them with IR, and then he just tries to shoot something else, right? But like he's great value to have in a list. I like him a lot.
All right. Do you want us to add him then? I think he seems like something I would probably play with. The threat of it. I mean, it's another one of those things where you're stacking on complexity and cognitive load on your opponent, because now they have to know where that guy is. You know what I mean? Like you just have to be aware of what his threat range is, and it's another thing to think about, and another threat vector for an ammo crate. I'm actually already annoyed just thinking about this guy. Thanks a lot, Brandon. Appreciate it.
I'm here for you.
I know. All right, who else are we putting in, or is there any others that are worth thinking about?
We're up to what are we at? 80 points.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about the solos a little more, I don't like Bastard Hawk. I don't see a place for him. His best value I found is as an ambush model, but for 4 more points, you could unit commandos to ambush, which just feels better.
Yeah, he's just expensive beyond what he's personally capable of. And there are some lists where you're willing to pay, X number of points. Like, okay, somebody just come off from the side and buy me more time. But if you're looking at him for any other value proposition, he's just a waste of time.
Yeah. And, sort of sidetracking for a second on the idea of bringing an ambush module in Gravediggers, we already have heavy airdrops, and the potential for ambushing in a unit of commandos, walking them 6 inches, placing a guy about 3.2 inches away from the guy that walked, and then heavy airdropping a blocker an inch away from them, and then walking the blocker another 6 inches as an ambush module lets you get a durable contesting model almost literally anywhere on the board, any turn after turn, like turn 2 or forward. So it can be a very spicy include to take in your list to have a unit of commandos and just literally say there's no beach out of reach. I can get anywhere with this model. Even if I start with nobody anywhere near that objective, I can contest it. Or I could potentially score it. If it's like your opponent's scenario terrain on, Trench Warfare? Is that the one where you can't score your own, but they can score it for 2? And it's like really far off on the flank, right? So, I mean, they're great. Commandos are great for that because they're an ambushing unit that can score it by themselves, right? So
I'm already annoyed. If somebody did that to me, I would be so annoyed. If somebody literally placed 3, walked 6, placed 3, placed 1, walked 6. Oh my goodness. You're right. You're just wherever you want to be. Gosh,
it's an expensive module, right? That gets 13 points that you've been holding off the board until you use it for that. But it can be a big swing in a game sometimes. So
yeah, it's interesting. People in the chat, they love Stella.
It's hard not to love Stella, right? Like she brings precision strike, and we all love the freedom of tactician. She's got a good gun too. She's got a brutal damage POW 12 with AoE. I personally wish she was Rat 7. Rat 6 just was a little too low for me for her gun. So like I've shot her gun so many times and missed. And if I was Rat 7, I would have hit. I was like,
oh my gosh, this Mark IV privilege. Do you realize how much Rat 6 or Rat 4 we played with in Mark II? Oh my goodness.
I do, but it's 2025. We have to look at things in the context of the game we have now.
I'm just saying, get off my lawn. This is BS. All right. Okay, cool. All right. So we have 20 points. What would you recommend we round out this list with? I mean, do you want to put the commandos in? Not worth it.
What are we looking at adding a third Valiant?
So you got a lot of things that a lot of directions you can go here. Like really so many directions. I personally like the idea of another cohort. And it's just a question of what you want. Do you want to bring a harpoon gun? Do you want to bring Nostilla and Aberration? Do you want to take Beaker? Do you want to take Deuce? Do you want to take another Valiant?
Here's my
So many
vote.
really good options.
I'd put Magnus in this list in a heartbeat. But
So let me tell you why I don't like Magnus in Gravediggers.
Mhm.
Because everything with Gravediggers on the card has Pathfinder or Relentless, for whatever reason, Steamforged in their infinite wisdom has decided Gravediggers cannot take the Careful Reconnaissance card.
Got it.
So you have no way whatsoever to give Magnus or Invictus Pathfinder or any way to ignore terrain. I don't like that personally. It drives me crazy if I can't give Pathfinder to an 80 mil super heavy.
That's fair. I'm
We also
sad now.
do almost nothing to support them. So
Well, they don't need they don't need support. That's the great thing about Magnus and Invictus is they're a very strong module all by themselves.
Although if they lose command card support, they can be pretty sad.
For sure.
yeah, and the other thing is like you are using your command cards to support your mainline army most turns. And so to have to decide about whether you want to use hit and run or blessing on Invictus is a more difficult choice in Gravediggers than it is in most armies because you're giving up the ability to heavy airdrop that turn, or to play a fuel canister for plugger, or to play a heavy or an ammo crate for your rangers, etc. So they sort of tax your resources the same as they would in any other list, but your resources are already taxed more in Gravediggers in terms of your command card resources. And then you do very little to support them, and you can never give them Pathfinder. And there are other good options that accomplish similar things. Like a Valiant with Vargus is going to threat further than Invictus. It's going to hit about as hard. It's going to hit more accurately because you can Carnage. It's going to have the flexibility to bring in guns, and it's going to be way harder to kill on your feet turn. So Invictus doesn't bring anything unique to a Vargus list.
Yeah, actually kind of
That's
sounds
why he
like
doesn't make it for me.
I don't think any of the juniors really bring that much to your list. Just
Yeah,
because of the way Vargus works. I mean,
right. I'm currently in the process of testing out Nostilla and Aberration because they bring some very different toolkit than the other two super heavy true mercs right now.
Yep.
Yeah, what are you liking them for there?
So the fact that you have this independent module can be helpful in a lot of games, but it's doubly so with Nostilla and Aberration because you don't even need to keep Aberration in Nostilla's control after turn 1 for anything. Unlike with Warbore or Invictus, where you either want to be able to give him focus, you want to be able to have advantage or take advantage of the bond for retaliatory strike or whatever. You want to be able to force and leech, etc. None of that matters for Aberration. You put vision on him and you send him off into the world by himself. She's a reptile. She doesn't care about mothering, right? I brought you here. I've done my job. And then she can go off and support the rest of your army with Revive, potentially with Dark Seduction, or channeling Dark Seduction through him is a very strong tool. And then she can leverage her brain damage gun as a threat against casters or war beasts or solos. And I've also found that her melee can be surprisingly useful because she has an 11-inch melee threat, which is anatomical. So she just brings a toolkit that functions in Gravediggers better than any of the other true mercs, and it's a little different than the other true mercs. She also, Aberration also has the option to choose Relentless Charge. So he brings his own Pathfinder, which the other true mercs don't. And Nostilla also synergizes decently well with Vargus because she has Succor and she has Awe. And Vargus has Evasive, and on his feet turn, he can be decent armor and not knocked down. So you can put her in an aggressive position with Vargus nearby, which usually feels counterintuitive. Like, I don't want my caster near a Succor target, but when your caster can choose to not be a Succor target at any time after he gets shot, it's a real deterrent that doesn't put you in real danger, right?
Right.
You can just be 2 inches away, and if it starts to look spicy or scary for Vargus, he can just evasive outside of Succor range. And in the meantime, if he's camping focus, if he's high armor, he can take shot. And also, Nostilla is harder to hit than he is. So if they're trying to kill Nostilla, these are shots that would be able to hit Vargus anyway. So there's just a lot of synergy going on, and she brings some unique things that, as opposed to just pure combat power or pure ranged output that the other true mercs bring.
All right. Well, you sold me. You guys, you want to put Nostilla and Aberration in this list for now? That
Well, but
kind of
slow
fills
down,
it
'cause
out.
there are a lot of good options, and 20 points is a lot, right?
20
I
points
don't
is a
know if
lot. I mean,
it's the best or
I
not.
like the third Valiant option, to be honest with you, but go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm all ears.
So let's talk about Deuce as an option that you could take instead. Deuce has a reload 1, range 12, POW 14 gun with true sight, which no still an aberration also have eyeless sight, which is very useful. Being able to ignore clouds and stealth is great without needing to use your toolkit to do it. You don't have to rack second sight. You don't have to flare something, etc. And his gun is just kryptonite to warjacks. Like the amount of range output he can do if he can shoot a warjack twice in one turn is disgusting. Now, Gravediggers does nothing to support him. We can't give him Pathfinder. He can't use any crates. But Vargus does support him. He can use Fleet, which is really actually sort of scornergistic with Deuce because he needs all 3 of his focus for shooting. But you have the option to Fleet if you need that threat range. And you can shoot twice, and one of those gunshots can be fully boosted. You can give him armor with your feet with Vargus, which is super good. He's baseline 13, 19, so that's nice. Rockwall is great for him because he's baseline def 13, which is great if you need it for the cover. And then he's just got a very powerful gun that you can leverage every turn. And if you can rack Rhythm of War, which Vargus is more likely to do than most casters because he's rack 3, then Deuce can functionally skirmish 6 inches every turn. He can walk up, shoot, and then end 6 inches further back and be very difficult for your opponent to interact with. So I think Deuce is a powerful option and include for Vargus. And let's talk about Beaker, because Beaker is like a very interesting, maybe counterintuitive include that I've been liking a lot with Vargus.
Yeah, this guy, every time I look at Beaker, I'm like, did this guy get lost and wind up in the wrong faction?
Probably. I think some Gravedigger major or general or something wandered into an R&D facility in Caspia, saw that they were working on Beaker and said, yeah, we'll take him. Like, this was meant for Storm Division. No. We'll take him right now. We need Warjacks. We're going to fight. Give him to us. But so he's very expensive at 16 points, and he doesn't have that obvious power that Deuce has. But he's got some good rules that are just sort of quality of life helpful every turn, and then he has a very good gun. So his gun, we'll start with that. That's the reason to take Beaker. It's a spray 10, POW 14. It's magical. It has pistol, has brain damage, baseline, and has critical knockdown. Deuce, unlike Deuce, Beaker is a Gravedigger model. So you can benefit from all of the crates with him. And unlike Deuce, Beaker only needs 2 focus for his gun to be effective against a single target. So he's happy to fleet to apply his threat range to shoot at a caster and threaten brain damage, or to put damage into a single model or a couple of models, right? And that gun can be very good, and his threat range can be very good. So with just fleet, he can walk 7 inches. If you give him a fuel canister, he can move 9 inches. And if you also put down an ammo crate, and you can do both of those things with Beaker, then he can also spray 12 inches. So you have a maximum threat of 21 inches for his gun. And it's rat 7, so it's very accurate. You can boost it. Right. And it's POW 14, or at max 19-inch threat, it could be POW 16. And there are very few stat lines in the game that POW 14 boosted doesn't have a high chance of damaging. And I don't think I've seen a caster yet where you don't have a very good chance of damaging them for brain damage. Right. Even a caster like Decethus, he has to get a lot of souls to get to a point where Deuce isn't likely to damage, especially if you can ammo crate for damage and be a POW 16. Really, you're talking about like arm 24, arm 25, Deuce is still likely to damage. And you get above that, just wait a turn, right? Because we're talking about feet level stuff for most casters. So it's a very serious threat. And a lot of casters really don't want to have the brain damage. Like a lot of casters, it can be very bad for them. And even if you're not doing that,
like brain damage as an answer to Carnage, because Carnage is such a big lever in the game. And so just even hitting any of those casters that cast Carnage one time with a brain damage is a pretty big swing in the attrition of the game, I would say.
It is. And I think, building on that more so than Carnage, for Vargus specifically, his defensive value that's most important in most matchups is armor. And a lot of casters rely on spells to deal with that. Either they want to shuffle Scything Touch from somewhere to somewhere else, or they want to hit you with Calamity or Mortality or something like that. And if you can brain damage a caster on the turn that you're feeding, all of a sudden your armor values are more actual and can't be reduced. And it can really flip the tempo of a game. Your opponent can go from being able to kill one of your heavies to now they can't kill anything on your feed turn, and that can be devastating. Brain damage brings you that option.
Another checkpoint for Distilla, right? So same thing.
Exactly.
Yep.
Beaker has some resistances that make up for the fact that he's only armed 19, so he's basically Kruger proof, right? Like Kruger's never going to get good value shooting at Beaker. He's resistant to electricity, so not only is he harder to shoot himself, but it means that you can't leap lightning off of him. So no electro leaps, no lightning generator leaps. And that's really important because it means you don't need to worry about where you're positioning models in relation to Beaker. He can be a lightning rod because he's not actually a lightning rod. Whereas any other model, you have to worry, am I putting something within 3 inches of this for electro leaps, like gun mage or something, or my caster that I don't want to get hit by leaps? Doesn't apply to Beaker. Sludge thralls are never going to hurt Beaker with their guns, right? Because he's impervious flesh and arm 19 against them. And then one of the quality of life things with Beaker is the empowered arc node. So when you channel something through Beaker, once per turn, you can reduce the cost by 1. And it's nice for a caster like Vargus because he has a good use of focus every turn, right? Like most turns, Vargus, if he has focus, he can shoot his gun if he doesn't need to worry about like camping for safety, which is not the case for every caster. Right? A lot of casters, particularly if their method of applying damage is melee, or for most casters that have a gun, it's like I have 1 gunshot, maybe 2 gunshots, right? So like the amount of focus you would use to boost is limited. Vargus has D3 plus 1 gunshots with powerful attack. Like you can use 2 to 4 focus to very high impact every turn with Vargus. So being able to have an extra focus could mean an extra powerful attack gunshot. So it's very valuable for him. And also as a Rack 3 caster, he's a lot of spells that you want to cast and utilize. Rockwall, Carnage on his card, often Arcane Shield, sometimes D-Cell, quite often Silence of Death. So having that 1 extra focus available can be very nice. And one of the cutest things that you can do, which I have rarely had be like actually impactful in a game to where like, oh, I'm really glad I could cast this spell for 1 less. It made a big difference. But sometimes it's happened, but it's more adorable and makes me chuckle every time is you can channel Rockwall through Beaker and cast it for 1.
Right.
Just because of the way the rules are written, like it's been addressed and rubber stamped by Infernals. Like that's the way it works. You can channel Rockwall. It costs 1 less. And it's just funny. It's like I'll start off a game sometimes when I have Beaker in my list and I'll cast Silence of Death for 2 on something. I'll cast Arcane Shield for 2 on something else. And then I'll channel my Rockwall for 1 just because it tickles me.
That's funny. That's cool though. I mean, I like Beaker. Beaker offers a lot of utility. It's also, particularly if you're doing something like Silence of Death, it just gives you the option to put it where you want it, which can be hard with Vargus, right? Because a lot of times you're going to have Fort Vargus, a place where he's pretty safe, your Rockwall set up or whatever, and you don't want to move him a bunch to like be swapping buffs around. So I could see that being.
Sorry, it also makes it a lot easier to swap Arcane Shield to a target, particularly a target like Plugger, who's often playing pretty far away from the main body of the force. And sometimes you'll be in a position where you start with it on a Valiant, you send up that Valiant, it does its thing, your opponent dumps a ton of resources into killing that Valiant, and then now you want it on Plugger, and he's like 15 inches away from your caster. You can maybe get Beaker into a place where you can channel Arcane Shield onto him, and that's great for you. So the flexibility is nice to have.
I like it. I'm going to vote Beaker for this list actually, because it seems to me that that's the way I would want to play it. I would want the flexibility of the arc node. The brain damage spray is nice to have, and you can buff it. You have another heavy. Actually, I guess I didn't look. Can he actually punch stuff?
He's got a power 17 sustained attack and disruption.
Yeah.
The main thing he lacks is aggressive, so he doesn't charge for free unlike the Valiants and Plugger. But he's got a decent punch.
Is there a world where you consider an assault strider with Vargus, or is that just off the table because of low relevance model type?
I think there's a world where you consider it. I'm not. So caveat: I haven't put in a ton of time to testing the final published iterate or form of Assault Striders, but I'm not impressed with them. Just reading their rules and thinking about playing them and building lists with them, they don't really impress me. At 10 points, their threat range is fairly short for their guns. You can't increase it because they're not a construct, so you can't use a fuel canister for them. They're not in your battle group, so you can't fleet them. They are a living warrior model, so you can heal them both with range of repair because they're repairable and with the medical crate, and that's cool. But they just don't feel like the most compelling choice to me anytime I try to build a list with them.
Gotcha.
I buy that. So I'm gonna vote Beaker and then maybe another unit of gun mages, and then we have a point left over. Unless you have a different suggestion. I mean, how would you finish this list out, Brandon? I guess let me ask you, what is your favorite variation of this?
So Bruno is an option right now, and I think that's a great use of 4 points. I think if you wanted to find a way to flex it to where you had an extra point available, like maybe turning a trench sword into a hammer, storm veins are always a fantastic option. Bringing the ability to reduce or bring range reduction to your army in a bubble from 3 different models is always valuable in this meta, right? Like it may not be essential, but it's always going to add value. The reason I don't usually take Storm Veins with Vargus is because his army, like you sort of identified earlier, John, is already so resilient to guns that I often find I'd rather just let my opponent shoot guns at me and not worry about the Storm Veins and like gaining an extra 3 inches of range with Vargus specifically. But it's not a bad idea to have them. Like there are tons of games where I don't need them, but it would make my like turn 1, turn 2 positioning be able to be more aggressive because I don't have to worry about guns at all within a certain range, as opposed to like be careful about where I put my range defenses, etc. So, and they also bring you or give you the ability to channel spells. So especially if you weren't taking Beaker, I think a unit of Storm Veins is a reasonable include in a list.
Got it. We already have Bruno. Do you like the additional unit?
Okay.
Do you like the additional unit of gun mages, or not necessary? Is there something else?
Well, now that you've added Beaker to the list, you have 4 Warjacks. I like the extra unit of gun mages for sure.
That's what I was thinking. Okay. And then is there a way to add another point in Gravediggers somewhere? Probably not. I don't think there's anything we want to change on the jacks. The Valiants, we're pretty happy with how they're laid out, I think, right?
Yeah, we're at 100 points right now, so.
Oh, well, never mind.
If we were
gun
allowed
mages
to
are
play
4.
101, that'd be great.
Yeah, why not?
Special rule for Gravediggers. Give us an extra point.
I love it. Okay, so that's the first list. Do you have time to build your list pair with this? I think we've talked about a lot of options. It should go faster if you have time, but I mean,
yeah, sure.
We're at an hour and a half. Okay, all right, let's do it.
We got a little bit of beer left, so I'm okay.
All right, let's do it. So for your second list, who is your caster du jour? Like who do you like to pair with Vargus right now?
Right now, I like Jake's the most because
she's my favorite
brings
caster. Yeah,
Jake's is just like historically the character, or in Gravediggers.
In Gravediggers, of the casters, she's the one that I would most enjoy to play. She just looks like fun, and she's quite powerful. Yeah,
synergy is great. Her feat is interesting, and most games I don't get to use her personally, but some games her offensive profile with sprint and sidestep is very high value. So she can be a very fun caster to play, even if most games you're enabling your army to be fun and she's just hiding somewhere. But you know, there are a lot of games where in the end game or even in the mid game, she gets to charge some unit and do her sidestep, flashing blade, grievous wounds, synergy, gun kata stuff, and then sprint to safety, and that's awesome. And you sort of savor those when they happen. But just baseline synergy with the with Gravediggers Warjacks is a good value and a good game plan. You've been learning. You put Plugger in there right away. That's the correct choice.
I do pay attention. I put 1 heavy airdrop. I don't know if you want a second in there, but I know we're going to do
entirely up to you. So I don't take heavy airdrops with Jake's, and it's
not at all.
not at all right now. I don't think it's incorrect to take them, but Jake's in particular, as a synergy caster, I'd rather spend points on battle group models than
Got it.
points on non-battle group cohort models.
Okay. Do you want to add some battle group models then? I mean, I'm going to guess we're definitely playing at least a couple of Valiants.
Oh, we're on
Yeah,
Jake's.
Yeah.
I think, and if we do this quickly, we can build a McCoy list because people are hankering for McCoy. If we look at chat. And I
All
think
right,
we
let's
can
do
do
it.
Jake's pretty quickly. So
Let's do it.
with Jake's, I think you want to slam the 6-point Patriot button and the Valiant button a few times. And that's just sort of where you start. 6-point Patriots are great because they literally bring everything you want for Jake's for the cheapest loadout. And it's one of those rare times in the game where everything just sort of comes up Millhouse when list building, and you say, this is exactly what I was looking for. And you're saying, I don't pay extra, you pay me. This is great. You want the 2-inch reach weapon that gives you sidestep. Sorry, just go to the head, make it shield guard. You did.
Yeah, I think I got
great.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. So looking at what it gives you shield guard, which supports Jake's otherwise lacking range defensive abilities. You want the sidestep because it gives you threat range and it gives you mobility during activation. You want set defense because it synergizes well with her feet and with potential rock wall placement to make Patriots very hard to kill with charging infantry models and other models. And you want the trench blade because if you do get to charge within 1 inch, then it has brutal charges, which is great. And it's also just a very cheap additional POW 12 weapon that gives you another initial and doesn't cost anything. So the 6-point Patriot is amazing value with Jake's. They're cheap enough that you don't feel bad about throwing them away to be initiators, like setting them up behind a rock wall, potentially up near an objective, and telling your opponent you have to commit more than 6 points to kill this model. And then I get to dive into that with the rest of my army. And I don't feel bad about sacrificing that 6 points. But they're also effective enough that if your opponent doesn't respect the 6-point Patriot with synergy and silence of death, it might be able to charge your caster and kill them with a bunch of POW 17s. And the threat range to do it is 13 inches on the initial charge, just from a fuel canister. With Butcher's Bill, it could be 16 inches if they trigger that. And if they're outside 16, but something else is there, you could potentially make it 18 if you sacrifice your first initial and then sidestep into them, or 20 inches if you sacrifice both initials and can buy 2 attacks. Like, it's just a thing that your opponent has to manage that can be very scary and take a lot of effort.
Are you doing 12-point Valiants or 14-point Valiants?
I'm not doing 14-point Valiants because I want to be able to trade them, and I don't do Jake's doesn't do anything to help them survive like Vargus does. So even if I put a shield on them, it makes them more resilient, but not resilient enough to where I can count on them surviving an encounter.
Right. Would you consider the harpoon, or is that just going to be too many points spent?
I have played harpoons with Jake's, and I don't hate it, and it can be good, particularly because with Butcher's Bill you can increase the threat range. You can take a harpoon shot during your Butcher's Bill. You can potentially also put Righteous Vengeance on the same Valiant, so you could move it 6 inches with Butcher's Bill and Righteous Vengeance, shooting the harpoon twice along the way, whatever. Like, there's some weird combos. Ultimately, I don't think it's the best choice, at least for me, because it feels like a lot of points to have options and be cute, whereas I could take a 12-point Valiant with aggressive and a trench sword that is just a killer, and that I don't feel bad about trading.
Yeah. So I put in 3 Valiants and 3 Patriots. You didn't tell me how many. You said hit the button.
I like
and
that.
I put in 3 units of gun mages, but we can make it 2 if you want.
I like 3 units of gun mages with Jake's because you're taking so many jacks. I want to be able to use them as much as possible. I never want to have to allocate from her if I can avoid it. And gun mages do that great. They're also units, so if you need to, you can use them to score objectives. They can be another thing that your opponent has to kill and trigger or damage and trigger Butcher's Bill. Yep. So I think it's just a solid include. And
yeah, you can do things like have a unit go off to the side and hang out with you know, an objective that needs to be scored, and not see, you know, significant drop off in your amount of focus that's available, or because you have 3 shield guard lights, if your opponent is bringing AoEs, you can just plant, you know, a gun mage near each shield guard and, you know, wait for your opponent to miss target priority and give you butcher's bill that way.
Right, exactly.
I like it. Okay. What else are we gonna add to this list? Are we putting Bruno in this list?
So, like I said before, Bruno's a great solo. I don't think it's ever really a mistake to take him. I don't know that he fits into the mission of this list quite as much.
Got it. Makes sense. What about our unit of Rangers or the Rowdies? Are you considering either of those?
Yeah, and just to backtrack for just a second to explain why I don't think Bruno fits into the mission of the list. He's great at unjamming, right? And he's great at dealing with warrior models. Jake's is a list that wants you to jam her if you're so inclined. She would love if you just ran your models up and jammed her, because it just lets her start the synergy chain more easily. She doesn't have to reach or overextend to get to your models. You deliver them to her. It just lets her do exactly what she wants to do with less effort. She also has a feat that gives your models acrobatics and unstoppable. So the jam accomplishes literally nothing but potentially preventing charges or runs if a model's engaged. But again, it just makes it easier for you to start synergy and then send the charging models where you want them to go. So you don't get value from Bruno in unjamming models, and you don't really need him to deal with warriors or volume of attacks, because you've got Patriots that are pretty good at dealing with warrior models. You still got Plugger, who is an absolute monster with synergy and killing spree. So just
Yeah, I can
he just
see.
doesn't. He's not really needed, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So Rowdies are cool. They can bring you a cloud wall, which Jakes doesn't hate. Nobody hates having access to that, but they also don't really fit into the mission that she is focused on. I do like Rangers with her, and it's for 2 reasons. One, they bring you a really good range threat, which is good for encouraging or / forcing your opponent to engage in melee with you, as
Right,
opposed to
especially because you don't have a ton of other ranged elements in the list right now.
Right, because you want your warjacks to be as cheap as possible so that you can trade them and have as many as possible. And the Rangers for 8 points bring you more ranged value than most warjack loadouts you could have anywhere. So they're good for that, and they also give you more models that can be upfront and die when you need them to, because you want to at least once in a game give your opponent the choice between seeding scenario points or giving you Butcher's Bill. And if they're playing correctly, they're usually going to give you Butcher's Bill, and so you get to walk up the Rangers, shoot their guns, not feel bad when they die, and trigger Butcher's Bill.
It also gives you another scoring option for a unit. Not a bad thing to have in SR. So
Right.
I like that.
And then
okay.
Importantly, the Rangers also give you repair, and you have all of these warjacks, so having access to repair is really nice.
Right. Yeah. Old Faithful is not going to go, you know, as far with her as it would with Vargus, which with a much more limited battle group.
Right.
All right. 9 more points. What are you thinking?
So I really like Storm Veins with Jakes because you want to have some protection against range attacks. She doesn't have the resilience that Vargus brings with his feet. She doesn't have the benefit of bringing high armor models like Vargus does with all the shield valiants, unless you're building your list that way, but that's not the direction we've gone, right? And she herself is fairly fragile at 15/15 with 16 boxes or whatever she has. So being able to protect her, to protect gun mages, and to help deliver your warjacks with Storm Veins is pretty great. You do have the option of light airdropping mantlets. If your opponent doesn't have Sapper, then that can help keep her safer. It does take away from your light airdrop supply. So it's sort of a last resort, a do I have to kind of thing. And Storm Veins can make it so that you don't have to much more often. And they also give the ability to channel if you want to shift Silence of Death from one model to another, which happens a lot without having to worry about where she goes. Because she's often in a position where she wants to charge some model and like clear a jam. But if she does that, she also wants to shift Silence of Death in another direction, and she can't do both. Or she has to like be positioned such that she's applying her bubble of synergy and or feet to cover certain things, and she can't shift far enough to cast it herself because then she's not applying her aura of influence where it needs to be. So having an arc node can be really helpful at managing that. So Stormveins are just sort of all around a good include with her. And then also at baseline, they're another 5-point throwaway unit you can just throw up somewhere to contest or score an objective and force your opponent to give you Butcher's Bill triggers if they want to score something.
Very cool. Okay, 4 more points. What are you thinking?
It's a tough question.
If you could take more gun mages.
Yeah, can you scroll down on the main list so we can see what we've got going on here? We've got 3 Patriots, Plugger, got 3 12-point Valiants, and Stormveins, unit of Rangers, triple gun mages. Oh, you have the heavy airdrop. That's why we're at where we are. Okay.
Oh, did I put that in there? I thought I removed that. My bad. Hold on.
I thought you did. Is it still? No, you
No,
did.
it's not in there. Yeah.
Give me a second. Let me look at what I've been doing in my list. Oh, I know. Okay, I see where I am. So you have this really cool option right now of reducing one of your Valiants to a basic 10-point Valiant and being able to take another Patriot.
I like it. Let's do it.
Oh, go up to 4 lights. So we just go evasive, hammer, and slug gun.
Yes. Just a basic pedestrian Valiant that's just here for a good time, not a long time. Maybe it never even gets to have a time because it has none of the threat range. It only runs 10 inches.
Well,
but
you get
another
to
heavy.
Once again, you get to watch for AoEs, and you position this guy next to a Patriot that's going to pull an AoE shot, so he gets a free evasive move.
Yeah,
that's a funny little trick I learned from Rick when building like the world's jankiest Sakura list. That's actually really effective.
Absolutely,
I dig it. I dig it. So you ended up with
another
1, 2,
option here. Sorry.
Yep. Go ahead. I was just gonna count how many jacks we ended up with. 4 lights,
4 heavies.
Ugh, gross. 3 units of gun mages, rangers,
Yeah.
and Stormveins.
So you have the option of dropping that 4th Patriot and dropping that 3rd Valiant. You have 16 points to work with, and there are a lot of compelling 16-point options in the faction. You can take 2 more units of rangers and just shoot the heck out of things some more. You can take another unit of rangers and a field gun and have that control element. You can take a unit of commandos and a field gun so that you have an even stronger ability to apply the field gun with flare and or make it easier to start off your synergy chains in certain matchups, like against Zadaroth feat or something like that, or Kaito's feat. You can take Beaker for 16 points, which I've enjoyed playing with Jakes. You can take a Valiant with a Harpoon and Stella for 16 points. Like you have a lot of options with those 16 points. And for me personally, that 16 points is where I've been doing all of the iterating and playing around with my list, trying to find what feels best at a given point in time.
Interesting.
Yeah,
it's
interesting.
That's where the flex comes in.
As more things are released out into the wild, right? Old Umbre is getting more models. The meta's changing. Dusk is getting a Colossal. There's a Crix Colossal on the horizon. So that'll allow you to kind of tailor to whatever you feel like, you want to have a little more of an answer for, or a few extra, what do I want to call it? Points towards victory, I guess, in certain matchups. So pretty cool. All right, I want to see McCoy. Actually, I'm actually kind of interested to talk about McCoy because I think he's very interesting as a caster.
Where would you rate McCoy, Brandon? Is this like satisfying a meme, or is this a caster you think has legs as part of a serious pair?
I don't know. I don't want to disappoint chat and say something that they're not going to love about
I don't
McCoy.
want to disappoint chat and be honest.
Yeah, no, I think McCoy is somewhere between a meme and a very good caster. I don't think he's a meme. I don't think he's going to be, I don't think he's an S tier caster. I think he's probably a solid B, maybe an A, meta dependent. Chad is already shaking their fist.
Look at these guys go. Boom, 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 boom. Love it.
I think that McCoy can slot into a competitive pair. I don't think it's perfectly optimal right now, but I think you can do it and get away with it. The difficult question is, who do you replace? Do you take Vargus out of your pair, this very powerful generalist that has all the tools? Do you take Jake's out of the pair, who is just like your sledgehammer of a matchup fixer for some matchups where you just really need that output? Boom Boom doesn't have that wow factor into armor, and he doesn't have that broad generalist toolkit where you can drop him anywhere and have a chance to win the game. Boom Boom does one thing, and he does one thing well, which is give fire for effect to your army. And this army takes fire for effect very well. But he does other things, to be fair, right? But like that's his main strength.
He can kill your caster dead because he can put a lot of threat vectors out there. Then wherever fire for effect goes, I mean that's not a terrible game plan.
Right.
It's not my style. But I understand
McCoy. Yeah, McCoy is the only caster in Gravediggers that can increase the threat range of your warrior models. Everybody else either has threat range increase for their battle group or not at all. And Boom Boom has it for warrior models with his feet. So he gives +2 speed to everything. He also gives Repo 5 to everything, which is a very strong ability. And he gives boosted charge attacks, cav advantage to everything, which is cute, but I don't think it's the strongest in Gravediggers because most of the things you're taking with him don't want to charge anyway. Like, obviously, if you have to charge, having a free boosted attack is far better than not. But you're taking like Rangers in his list. You're taking Rowdies who really want to shoot their guns. You're taking maybe Commandos. None of these things really want to charge yet. You're potentially taking Stormstriders. They don't really want to charge. They want to shoot their guns. I guess you charge if you can, right? Because they have dual attack and gunfighter. There's no good reason not to for the most part. But they're not like, you know, these really powerful melee models where like, oh my God, they're cav now. They get boosted charge. That's super impactful. You're taking field guns, which have no melee attack and can't move. And you're taking like maybe Plugger, and boosted charge attack is cool for him because maybe you're more likely to get a crit on the charge for decap. That's nice. I really like Deuce with McCoy for 2 reasons.
Interesting.
Yeah, one, like I already mentioned, his strongest tool that he brings. I think the reason to play him, if you're going to play him, is fire for effect. And you want to have it on 2 things every turn. And it's an expensive spell. You upkeep it for 1, you cast it for 3. That's 4 out of his 6 focus. Did I say Deuce? I'm sorry, I meant to say Beaker.
Oh, I see.
We want Science Man. Sorry.
You did say
I was
Deuce,
like in my head trying to think like, okay, I guess Deuce is focus efficient. Maybe that helps, but Beaker makes way more sense.
Look, the paradigm of 2 character warjacks in a faction has broken my brain, and so having 3 good character warjacks available, sometimes I, misname my children when I'm trying to describe them. So yeah,
I understand. Also, you have not eaten, and we've kept you on here 48 minutes past the 1 hour you gave us. So
we're good.
All right.
I chose this life.
You did. I just threw a bunch of the stuff you mentioned in here. Rowdies, 2 units of Rangers, some Commandos. I put Bruno in because it just seems like he fits really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Bruno loves speed.
Yep, he loves speed. He also just gives you an option to like knock something down and then blow it into smithereens like your caster. Anyway, I don't know how I'm gonna let you tell me in the essence of saving some time. Tell me how you would build this, and then we'll just talk about the finished product, if that's okay.
So I like what we've started with here. I like Beaker and Plugger. I think they both fit into the game plan for McCoy pretty well. Beaker lets you channel fire for effect for 1 cheaper, and it gives you more flexibility of being able to swap it between things. Beaker's gun is also fantastic as a target for fire for effect, and not running out of fire for effect targets I think is important for McCoy as the game goes on, as you suffer losses, you want to always have other things you can fall back to and say, okay, this guy is now insanely powerful with its gun. Oh, you killed him. Now this guy is insanely powerful with his gun. And Beaker fits into that. So his gun, very strong. It's a spray with high power for fire for effect, brain damage, crit knockdown, great target for it, and you can swap it for cheaper. Plugger is Plugger. He's always good to have. You get the threat range with him, the same threat range that you get with Vargus because of the feat, except you don't have to pay for it for fleet. Repo 5 is great if you go in to like punch the heck out of something and don't kill anything. You can still Repo 5 on feat turn even if you don't get sprint triggered. The free boost on the charge means you're more likely to crit, and crit decap on a Warjack is very powerful. And his gun is really good. So it fits into the ranged alpha nature of the list where you move things up with a far threat range and shoot the tar out of stuff. Like Plugger is great for that as well. And he also has extended control range, which for all of our control 12 casters, it's nice to have a model that can exist somewhere outside of that 12-inch bubble and still benefit from everything. I like a field gun because they have a very impactful gun with fire for effect especially. And in a list where you are already happy to take commandos, it means you can deploy them in a safer position because I have a major gripe with field guns, and it's that they're ARM 18 with 18 boxes. They're just way too easy to shoot to death. Way too easy to shoot to death. You have shockingly high odds, just as an aside, to shoot a field gun to death with a unit of Rangers and an ammo crate by themselves. And I think it's over 40% for them to do that, and maybe higher. I'd have to look at the numbers again. Like it's way too easy to shoot to death. So you have to deploy it really far back and rely on flare in a lot of matchups to be able to use this gun turn over turn and not just have it die. And because McCoy is happy to take at least a unit of commandos, and you have that extra threat range with the feat and often racking dash to where you can apply flare and then repo and maybe be able to do it again the next turn, I think at least one field gun is a very solid choice. I don't think it'd be wrong to take two and just have part of your game plan be cycling fire for effect between them. Because with an ammo crate and fire for effect, they shoot at what, POW 18 for the direct hit and then POW 12 blast, all fully boosted, in addition to the control that they apply with suppressing fire and crater.
And crater, yeah.
They're just a really good model to fit into his game plan. I think the Striders are also a great include because they have a similar main gun that's, I think, AoE 2, POW 16 as well for the direct hit, and POW 10 blast. Yeah. So that battle cannon is a fantastic fire for effect target. Also has crit knockdown.
Crit knockdown, yeah. I saw that.
You boost that gunshot, like it's on an AoE. So really good gun for that.
Is fire for effect only the first melee or range attack you make a turn? Is that right?
Yeah, okay. It's just the one.
But it's for all of the roles, right? But it's just the first one.
Yeah.
I really like the Rowdies with him because the Cloud Wall can help protect both McCoy himself, because he is not statted well for an 80 mil caster.
No.
Defense 9 for some reason, which I do not understand. So a Cloud Wall option is nice. It's also nice if you're taking field guns because, like we just talked about, they're so easy to kill with guns. It can help protect them. And thanks to community feedback, Steamforge has decided to change the rule that all structures counted as 120s, even if they're on 80 mil bases. So now that that's no longer the case, that field guns can be screened by clouds, it's nice to have that option to help keep them alive. Which commandos also do, especially with his feat, they can potentially repo out of their own clouds, which normally they can't, even if you take the commando officer that gives them repo. So I like the Rowdies for that. Also, they bring the same technology they bring in every list, which can be useful. They threat further in melee, which is nice. And then Franks has one of the best guns for fire for effect, I think, in the game. Because
I have been killed by a Franks shot before.
It is nasty. So he has a double-barreled shotgun. He can both barrels to make it it's Rat 7, and that makes it power 16. If you ammo crate, it's power 18. But he also is granted precision fire from Jenkins, so you can reroll the damage rolls. So you've got this either spray 8, POW 16, POW 18, or spray 10, POW 16 gun with rerollable damage, with fire for effect. That thing's a monster. And you can get him fairly far because of unit movement and placement, right? So I think this unit, and also Jenkins' gun, which has really good tech, you can make it more reliable to apply with fire for effect. Because normally, like, you're shooting a Rat 7 to flare or Grievous something, you're hoping you hit with Rat 7. And like, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But making it a boosted Rat 7 is a lot more reliable. So they're just a good unit to include. Rangers are a great unit to include. You don't need to put fire for effect on them, but you sure can do a full 5-man CRA with fire for effect if you're trying to kill a caster or something, and they can get there because they have good baseline threat range, great baseline accuracy, and just like we talked about, they're very efficient at shooting 50 mil or larger models by themselves without support, and he just increases their threat range and gives them repos, so maybe you can keep them back to survive another turn. So these are all great options to work well in a McCoy list. I also really like Stella with McCoy. I really like Stella with McCoy because you have all of these models that, like, more models than you're taking in most lists. That Precision Strike becomes hyper valuable, and she also has a very good gun for fire for effect.
Right.
Because it's
she's also an incidentally good target.
Yeah, I like the play where you start with fire for effect on her turn 1. And then turn 2, she uses Precision Strike, walks up, shoots her gun, you swap it to somebody else.
I like it. Okay, so I mean, we've got kind of a hodgepodge. I don't know that we have a coherent. I mean, all of these models are good with him.
That's a McCoy list. There's there doesn't need to be a coherent theme besides I bring all of these good warriors with guns, right?
Right. Yeah, I get the impression that McCoy is like missing a spell. Like, we're just gonna go good stuffs and play for fire for effect, because what else does he do? Don't worry about it.
So chat is suggesting a heavy machine gun, but I'm looking at this list right now. It has 9 points available, and I say we put in the Black 13th. Because we talked about it, they're just a good shooting module. This list wants to shoot things to death. McCoy increases their threat range, gives them repo 5 for a turn instead of repo 3. And they bring the momentum gun that Glover has and just really good shooting. They fit into the assassination paradigm. They fit into the range attrition paradigm. If you've got 9 points, slot them in there.
All right, I dig it. Man, Brandon, you are the bomb. There was so much good information in this episode. And Alex and I have proven that we can go 2 hours with no plan. And that's pretty much what we just did.
The plan was to talk about stuff we enjoy. I think that's enough of a plan.
Yeah, we love it. I mean, we love doing this. And as a matter of fact, we just hit 200 subscriptions. And remember, everybody that's watching this, if we get to 500, Alex and I are adding a 3rd hour to this show. So you get more of us. Probably not more of Brandon because he's got to eat, but you get more of us. Brandon, thank you so much. I mean, this was truly illuminating. I feel a lot better actually just thinking about the matchups into Gravediggers. I learned a lot, so I appreciate that a lot.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Alrighty, sir.
Definitely giving me a lot to think about.
You are absolutely free to bounce if you'd like. We'll only have, I guess we're not doing math this week again. This has turned into a meme again. We've been promising to do that. You saw that math section, right, Brandon? Alex wrote this beautiful math section, which was incorrect, but we'll go into that another time. And
barely, technically, but that's important.
Just barely, just a little bit slightly incorrect, not totally incorrect. But we've been threatening to do this section on math for new players
for more than a month.
Weeks. Yeah, 6 weeks or something. And I even put it in the show notes. I mean the description of the show this week. We're finally going to do the math episode because you said you were going to be on for an hour, and I was like, perfect, no problem.
I've ruined everything. I'm so sorry.
No, you certainly didn't ruin anything. This episode is one of my favorites, and mainly because you were here.
That's so sweet.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan, Brandon. I'll just let you know that now. All right. Anybody in chat have any questions for Brandon before we let him get out of here? And then we do some news and announcements and other fun stuff really quick before we get out. All right.
I know
Brandon,
they're thinking.
thank you.
I know they're
Go ahead.
thinking why he hate Boom Boom, but they don't want to say it.
We were. I mean, you did bring him. We did bring him out to talk about. So it was cool. Fire for effect is a heck of a drug. I can understand why people want to play it.
Oh, that's a good question, Joe. What's the ideal smoke time for salmon? I don't know. I just Google everything before I smoke it.
Or ask Claude, right?
Or ask Alex. He's a really good source of information for anything dealing with meats or cooking.
Well, Alex is a really good source of useless information. Come on.
Also true.
What's up, Joe?
I will
Good to
not
see you, my
dispute
man.
this claim.
Yeah, there is no disputing it. Anybody that knows you knows that it was absolute truth. We just dropped a truth bomb on the button. Probably the most true thing that we said all night. Anyway, I'm just playing. Okay, cool. Well, this has been another episode of the Amusing Panda live stream. It was a really good one. We didn't get to news and announcements, but hey, Gen Con's this weekend. It's been confirmed that the Phantom will be available. I wanted to give a quick shout out to Centurion Tactics, which is Mario, who does these amazing tokens. I don't know if you guys can see this, but they have like these command cards. Probably can't see it. Probably can't get it to focus. They're little tiny cute command cards, and like all the spell effect tokens, right? So, they're great. The reason why I really wanted to give him a shout out was I ordered a bunch of tokens for Dusk and the Mercenaries. And then right after I ordered them, Nastilla got announced, the Phantasm got announced, and I just got a package in the mail out of the blue with all the tokens for Nastilla, Aberration, the Phantasm. He didn't mention it to me. He didn't send me an invoice. He just knew that I needed them, and he sent them to me. And I think he gives that level of service to everybody. And so I just wanted to shout him out. I put a link in the show notes to his website. I think it's centuriontactics.ca. They're fantastic.
Can I interrupt you for a second, John? And just
go ahead.
Add on to that. Mario, who does this, is also a fantastic dude, and he also does a ton to support his local Warmachine community. He runs events, he prints all kinds of terrain and trophies and awesome stuff. So he does a lot to give back to the community. He's a good dude. He's also a good person to support if you're at all interested in his product.
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I actually have his website up here. So I'm going to put it here, and I also put it in the show notes. But if you're looking for tokens are actually kind of a hard thing to find, which is a really weird place for me to be because I used to make all the tokens. So it's like it was awesome running into Mario and just having access to it. I almost ordered tokens from Sweden, I think, of all places, because I was like trying to find tokens and I just was not having a lot of luck. So yeah, I agree, Joe. Mario is an absolute amazing guy. And here's the website in case you're wondering. All right. Well, that's all we got. Peace and love, everyone. We will see you next week where we will probably not talk about math, but we will threaten to. And I think we're going to be doing Winter Core next week. So that'll be really fun.
Exciting.
We'll dive deep. And as a matter of fact, I also had another announcement. I forgot about this. The Tried and True folks have created a section on the Delaware Discord server, which I'm going to get a link to for you guys. If you want to talk about the show or suggest topics or even suggest factions or casters you want us to talk about, that would be. Oh no, that's not what I wanted. That was the wrong button. Dang it.
Right. Yeah.
This is the problem with technology. I can't do any of these things.
We can do the return of Off the Scrap Heap here.
Yeah, actually, that would be fun. One of my favorite things to do is to build lists that are built on a janky premise and then trying to make them work. I just think that's, for me, that's a lot of fun. Here we go.
All right, guys, I'm going to run. Again, thank you so much for having me on. I enjoyed the
thanks
chat.
for coming, Brandon. Great to chat with you again.
I'll catch up with you guys later.
All right, man. Take it easy. All right, folks. Come and learn about Blind Runner Congregation. Yeah, actually, we have a huge chat about Blind Runner Congregation in there for sure. And then here's the Discord link, so feel free to join. But yeah, as a matter of fact, we are going to build at least 2 Winter Corps lists next week. And it's going to be for Chris, who's been on the show quite a bit from Boost to Hit.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, Chris is not tied to any particular casters. So if you guys have a caster you want us to build for, jump in the Discord and let us know, and we'll take whatever the most popular caster is that people want to see a list built for, and that's what we'll do. It'll be fun. So do it to it. And somehow we managed to run over 2 hours with only having Brandon on for an hour.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. Yeah, amazing. Thanks everyone. Again, thanks everyone. 200 subs is an amazing number. We're super happy about that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if we can get just a scant 300 more, we'll add a third hour. And we love you guys, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Alex, anything you want to say before we go?
Nope. Thanks everybody for watching. Have a great week, y'all.
All right. Peace and love, everyone.